All right, well, good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the City of Atwater Citizens Oversight Committee for Public Safety and Transactions Use Tax Advisory Committee meeting. I would like to call this meeting officially to order at this time. Before we begin, I'd like to welcome Mr. Jim Price to the committee, who has replaced Mr. Thomas Gardner, just for clarity here. And with that, I will turn the meeting over to the clerk to read the information. Thank you.
So we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Santos?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we can move on to roll call, please.
Ingram is absent. Perez? Here. Price?
Here.
Santos?
Present.
Kendra Wizard?
Present.
We have a quorum. There are no subsequent need items, so approval of agenda as posted or amended. Motion to approve agenda as posted or amended.
Motion to approve.
I approve the agenda as written.
So motion by Kendra Wizard, second by Santos. Perez?
Approved.
Price?
I'm going to abstain. I was not here for that.
Santos?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry for the agenda.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Thank you for the clarification. Yes.
Yes, okay. Santos?
Yes.
Kendra Wizard?
Yes.
The motion passes. Now minutes for March 12, 2024, regular meeting. Motion to approve minutes as listed.
I move to approve minutes as listed.
Okay.
Second.
So moved by Santos, second by Kendra Wizard. Perez?
Approved.
Price?
I renew my abstention.
Santos?
Yes.
Kendra Wizard?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Oh,
So now we have reports and presentations from staff. Verbal financial report by Finance Director Nicholas.
Thank you, Gisela. I provided in your agenda packet for tonight's meeting is an unaudited budget status report that is printed out of our software system. This is for Fund 4, which is the Public Safety Transaction and Use Tax Fund. And this is a year-to-date, so fiscal year-to-date budget status report. In addition, you'll notice a secondary report that's been provided for the Citizens Oversight Committee, and that is a accounts payable transaction by account report for Fund 4, and this shows you year-to-date accounts payable payments that have been issued out of this fund. And that is the only update that I have.
so it is my understanding that this information was emailed to the committee in advance. I don't know if anyone had an opportunity to review, but if you have any questions or comments, now would be the time.
Madam Chair. Yes, the agenda packet that you referred to came, but it wasn't as detailed as the one that was presented to us tonight. But if I might, I'd like to make, just looking through the one presented tonight, I'm not seeing anything that would be questionable under the funding mechanism. But there was just one that I would like to make note of. And I know that Chief Ayuso is probably going to, send me daggers, but here's the thing. March 12th committee meeting, there was no mention to the painting of the firehouse. At the Planning Commission meeting, it was brought up, and Bobby made a very nice presentation and all that. But at the end, he says, this is all funded out of Measure B. Now, I want to be clear that I think that this project is a good project. There's I have no issues with it, especially over the fact that you had somebody within the department that could do the work and do it, basically in a self-help scenario. The only issue I have with this is that funding it through Measure B. I do not believe that this amount of money or any amount of money to go to pay for paint is an appropriate expenditure. I do not, and I'm sure nobody within the city feels any safer that the firehouse is painted. That's basically my view on that. So if there were to be a recommendation of some sorts, it would be that this should be something that the general fund under line item for public safety should fund and not out of public safety funds. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any comments?
I do have a quick comment. So I had similar concerns. However, I did reach out to Chief Ayuso and ask for some clarification on those. And after discussing those, it does make more sense regarding those repairs. And I'm sure that'll get explained with the updates. Because those concerns did come to me also as a committee member. And I did reach out and discuss those. And they are part of, as it was explained to me, I can understand why it was paired up with those, with other repairs regarding garage doors and things like that.
The only thing I'd add to it would be, and Mr. Price, you were here last time for that, and you did kind of string a chord with me in a sense of, you said a lot of truth in a sense of, I don't want to be up here hearing everything after the fact, and would like to be a part of hearing what the plans are for the measure and how it's going to be utilized, and not being simply filled in after it's happened already. I did take that home with me, and I thought about that. I don't want to be up here for, just for a pony show. I'd like to know what it's going to be spent on or where the money's going and if we find it appropriate or not.
I appreciate that, and I spend a lot of time coming up and mentioning things, and one of the things that when I took on this venture of being on the committee was that I want to know, and I think the citizens deserve to know where their money is going to. Measure B was a very how should I say, controversial thing. And, for me, it wasn't so much, that it was a full cent, even though I thought that, the timing was wrong on that. But for the fact that if we're going to spend this kind of money, then let's make sure it's going right where it ought to go and not where it shouldn't go. I am appreciative of the fact that we have facilities that will need to be repaired from time to time and all that kind of thing. But again, I go back to the general fund, and for line items through the budgetary process, if it can be, or at least through maintenance funds and things like that pertain to either police or fire. And yeah, I just hope that, maybe we can, return these monies and get paid out of the general fund and put it back into the Measure B funding. Thank you.
You got it though?
So, yes, I too listened to our last meeting, and I had followed up with an email to both the finance director and the interim city manager for my clarification. how to lead, some of the discussions regarding this committee. And one of the concerns that I had raised was with respects to how these funds were being vetted and allocated to certain expenses. And I understand that our role is just that of an advisory committee. After the fact, these expenditures have already gone through the process of being requested and reviewed by staff and placed into the budget, and we are to just simply ensure that the expenditures are in line with what has been approved with the budget. From that discussion, we now have a year-to-date budget report to help us with some of the look back, if you will, that occurs with financials. So instead of having a quarterly review, right, of expenditures, we can now see year to date what has been spent. This may not be real time, but it gets us a lot closer than the quarterly. I mean, am I mistaken? No, okay, thank you. So, so that's some of that. But again, the opportunities that are being raised by Mr. Price of the expenditures and what should be refunded, if you will. Having read through the manuals that we did receive as committee members, there is language that addresses what expenditures qualify, although perhaps the language may not be as detailed as we would like, because I too had questioned some of what I consider to be a capital expense, right? Should this pocket or bucket of monies help fund any capital expenditures? But again, sometimes the language just doesn't give us the answers that we're looking for. But I do believe that, staff is doing a good job after having spoken, again, with the finance director and the interim city manager. Staff is doing a very good job in ensuring that safeguards are in place, that the monies are being spent the way they are allocated. So with that, I will turn it over to the interim city manager for further clarification.
Thank you, and I urge Canada to keep me at the table the rest.
Correct, and I'll just wrap it back up just for purposes of agenda item 2, I believe it was. Yeah, so under that particular agenda item, bringing it back into focus, the 23-24 adopted budget did have exterior paint approved. So it is an approved expense by what was set forward in the budget.
Yeah, and to that end, that becomes back to the nature of, was it an approved expenditure by the council? Yes, it was. Was it evaluated before it was proposed? Yes, it was. But that's different than the question of whether it should have been done or not because of the optics involved in that public safety measure. That's a completely different thing, but I just want to make sure that the committee is aware that those issues were raised and were discussed and evaluated before they were put in there. This one specifically, because we knew it may fall into question. The purpose and the role of the Planning Commission, just so that we're clear, because Jim spoke to that as well, and Bobby did do a great job taking that in front of the Planning Commission that night. He was there for a different purpose. All governmental structures under the municipal code, under Title 17, which is your zoning ordinance, all governmental structures, if you're going to be making modifications, painting, paint schemes, monuments, fountains, any of those things must appear before the design review committee. They were not there to set or approve any expenditure, only the visual appearance of what they were representing. So you have different components going at different times. You have the review of what changes that were going to be made to the building addressed at the Planning Commission, the expenditures that were set at the time of the budget and approved by the council, and then the oversight to make sure that that is understood by this particular committee here. I don't know if that helps in any way or not. I just want to make sure that all that was out there and explained to the committee.
I do have one question, just for the public that may or may not be watching. I just want to confirm that we are just discussing the $1,828.65, correct? That's what we're discussing? Just that particular, there is no other areas in the financial report?
That's the only one that I am questioning on. And if I might, Gabe, also, I think it's important, as a body, something like that. What is needed? If this is going to live up to the oversight and true definition of oversight of the funding, I think we should have probably, or the committee should have had this put before them on the meeting of the 12th, and scrutinized then, and discussed and what have you. This is kind of an after the fact thing because the check for this was written 5/31, I think, or somewhere around there. 5/13. Thank you. So it's money already spent. And this has been one of the things that has given me heartburn, not just on this, but on other issues where money gets spent and then it's, oh, by the way, we went and we bought this or we spent it on that, type of a thing later on. That's not oversight. That's just skirting the committee, and that's doing a disservice not only to this committee, but to the residents that I think, for those that are familiar with the Oversight Committee, are depending on us as a body to look at and make sure that money goes to where it's supposed to go. And in this particular case, $1,800, in the grand scheme of things, is it a lot of money? No. But I'll bet that Chief Salvador could probably take that 1,800 and something bucks and probably go out and buy 3 or 4 new patrol pistols for his officers. If he had to replace it, 3 or 4 of those could probably be purchased with that, or duty ammunition or something. So, $1,800, like I say, is not, in the grand scheme of things, a big amount of money, but it's important that I think the Oversight Committee scrutinize every expenditure no matter how big or how small. And that's the only reason I bring it up. To be clear, I am not, against a project such as this, especially when, the chief has guys within his department that step up and do the work and that kind of stuff and do it under a self-help scenario. I think that's commendable. But it's just the expenditure and nothing more. Thanks.
No, I'm sure that when Chief Ayuso provides his update, he'll be able to break this down, because I know there was portions of this, there's 5 different line items here, and portions of those would have definitely met the definition and how it was all tied in together. And I did ask the question because it was brought to me by citizens, and I had that concern. And with the previous approved station maintenance, it came well within, way under what was previously budgeted for this project, because it was done in-house. So I also commend them, the employees, for being able to do that. But I look forward to hearing Chief Ayuso's report on that particular project.
Next, we have verbal police department update by Police Chief Salvador.
Members of the committee, Mike Salvador, your police chief. I have 2 updates for you tonight. I think one is probably pretty appropriate considering the conversation we just had. So the first one is some just general statistics that are as of today. We've responded to and handled over 16,000 calls for service, taken just under 2,000 reports, made just under 500 arrests, and just a little over 1,000 citations this year, which is pretty normal, pretty on track. Nothing really stands out as, is there wood here, Jim? Nothing really stands out on the statistical side. Now, rotating back to the conversation, I do want to provide you a preview of the 2024-2025 budget. The police department on a typical average year spends up to just a little under $10 million every year. Comes out of 5 different fund pots, Measure B being one of them. Measure B is the number 2 source of resources for the police department. Only the general fund exceeds it. This year's Measure B allotment to the police department is 21% of the total budget for the police department. So basically 21 cents out of every dollar the police department spends comes out of Measure B. Now, here's something very, very important for you to realize. Out of that 21 cents, 80% of the 21 cents pays for personnel, salaries, and benefits. There's not a lot of money in there for things. The total department budget this year is $9.6 million across all 5 funds. And out of that, 87 cents out of every dollar is salaries and benefits. So, with that, Measure B pays for 6 major department initiatives in the 25 fiscal year. Initiative number 1 is our Citizens Portal that allows regular people to go online, report crimes to us. It's been very, very successful for the last 6 months that we've had it. Measure B paid for that and will continue its ongoing maintenance. Our automatic license plate reading equipment. The automatic license plate readers are at 5 Corners and Schaefer. Measure B paid for the installation of those cameras at those locations. They will also pay for their maintenance. Our Neighborhood Watch program is paid for out of the ballot measure. We've got 6 neighborhood watches throughout the city. Their supplies, the signs, the stickers, the meetings, that's paid for out of the ballot measure. Our fleet replacement program, when I took over almost 5.5 years ago, there wasn't one. Now there is one. It is funded out of the ballot measure. It pays for current leased vehicles, and it pays for their replacements. The Axon Taser program. That program it started as the typical Axon Taser conductive energy weapon that you guys have probably all seen, but that's only part of the Axon Taser ecosystem that we now currently have at the police department. It also runs the body camera program, and it's going to expand to in-car video and our digital evidence platform. Without those platforms, it is very hard in 2024 law enforcement to prosecute cases without those platforms. Measure B pays for that. And then last but definitely not least is the Public Safety Master Plan. That plan will set both public safety agencies' priorities and needs for the next 25 years. The city has never had a public safety master plan, and we're using the ballot measure to try to look to the future, see what constraints are in the systems that we currently have. How are we going to pay for a new fire station? How are we going to pay for a new police station? How are we going to provide public safety for the citizens of Atwater for the next 25 years? That is also a major initiative in the ballot measure. It pays for approximately 8 of my personnel. So with that, that's where we're going. There's not a whole lot of flexibility there because these are major systems. And my goal as the chief is always to fix the cost of these major systems over a long period of time, get the best bang for the buck, and fix their costs to make it easier to budget, because personnel costs continue to increase. These salaries and benefit ratios are the highest since I've been your chief, and they will continue to increase. And with that, I'll take any questions if you have them.
Chief, the master plan that you're discussing, that's covering both fire, that's all public safety? And
Yes, sir.
Just confirm this is the Griffith Structures Incorporated?
It is.
On the,
It is.
Griffin Structures may be a bit of a confusing name for a lot of your committee members because you think, oh my God, what are they building? No, they're not. Griffin Structures is a multifaceted company that the city already uses for construction and project management. They're an on-call vendor that we use, on-call professional services. They have underneath their umbrella the ability to perform other analysis, which is why Bobby and Chief both elected to use them. I am working with our public safety folks because of my familiarity with both the general plan and master plan processing. I've got to tell you, from the materials that I'm reading so far, I'm very encouraged.
and just one last question here. For the date, there was 3 different checks for the same date. Is this being in phases? Is that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And which phase are we currently in?
We have just received some draft reports. We are reviewing them now. We have a meeting tomorrow that we're going to go over with the vendor. There's some stuff that is not there yet. We're probably, I'd say, 40 to 50% done with the work.
Thank you.
Chief, I get it with the salaries and that kind of thing. As a business owner myself, I get it. This is one of those things, but one of the problems I know that you probably have to contend with is the fact that you're competing with other departments that can pay better. or pay huge bonuses or whatever. So it's a dilemma, and I know that you're doing the best you can, with what you've got, but that is a problem. You mentioned that 21 cents to the police budget comes by way of Measure B. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
21 cents of every dollar we spend in the police department comes from Measure B.
Okay. And along those lines then, do you know what the percentages would be for CFD money?
Yes, I do. I can break it all down for you if you'd indulge me just a little bit. If you take a look at a dollar, I have a poster board of that. It's not as good as this number, but if you take a look at a dollar, 71 cents out of every dollar the police department spends comes from the general fund. 21 and a quarter cents comes from the ballot measure. 7 and a quarter cents comes from the CFD. 1/3 of a cent comes from the abandoned vehicle program from NCAG. And 1/3 of a cent is miscellaneous federal block grant funding that we receive on a yearly basis, very minor in scope, usually focused on a certain system or piece of equipment that the department needs. We'll be coming back before the council with our spending plan on those later this summer. And when you add that all together, that equals $1.
Okay. And so this license plate reader that you got?
Yes.
Great toy. I'm just curious, up at Five Corners, there's going to be a lit up advertising sign that's going to go in multiple directions. And I'm just curious if anybody's done any kind of study to see as to whether or not this may or may not interfere with that.
No, it will not interfere with that. When we engineered the corner, those cameras are placed at intervals behind the intersection, and our advertising board does not affect our license plate reading software equipment.
For the benefit of the committee and for the committee chair and for participants and staff, just a reminder that we've got a little bit of latitude about discussion on these items, but we really need to keep the focus of the committee on the activities of the public safety tax measure. So any mechanical issues that any of the committee members, including Mr. Price, have about function or function of utility or anything like that, I am happy to spend any time with you guys that you need to,
And
with
so
the
am I.
chief. But I just want to, as a reminder, we have to kind of corral back to the focus of the committee. So, and that is not meant as a disrespect to any of the committee members.
Got it. Just one last question, and I'm getting this secondhand actually, but with the budget, I'm understanding that we got some issues to deal with the budget. So I'm sure that all the departments have been tasked with figuring out within their places, public works, whatever, that there needs to be some kind of trimming within those. Within the police department, has there been, and what are those cutbacks that you've experienced so far?
In the ballot measure, none. In the general fund, of course, the general fund, we are 30+% of the general fund at the police department. So if the general fund gets sick, we catch a cold. I'll use that analogy. Now, does that mean we're losing any sort of service because of that? No. The service level is not affected. Currently, we have 28 funded positions in the police department. That includes my own. 2 of them are vacant. With the recruitment and retention issues that all police agencies in California and the nation are having right now, to only have 2 vacant sworn positions. Let's do cartwheels because that's great. Now, we have 4 people in training right now. The largest hiring push for sworn officers that I've had in my tenure. We have one in the academy. She started on Monday of last week. We have high hopes for her. Once we get them all out, we will increase the police department's effective staffing by a full shift. But we got to get them all at training.
Congratulations.
Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, well, if I
Go
might
ahead.
just, I'm sorry, it's been eating me up. So there has not been or will be any layoffs that you anticipate within your department?
I don't know where you got the term layoffs because I have not asked for any,
Okay.
and nor would I ask for any. Whenever you're trying to do budgetary work like this, you always look at unfilled positions. You know, if you've got to do more with less and you've got unfilled positions and you can't fill them, then why just hold them? Use that, hold that budget authority. No, I don't know, Mr. Price, where you got the layoff thing. It's
No,
not even a word in my vocabulary.
Okay, well, I was just as a point of clarification so that we make sure, because in my estimation, this Measure B funding should never allow for staffing levels at any, within any department, within a department, staffing levels. So that's good to know, and I appreciate the answer, Chief.
No,
Thank you.
not a problem.
Thank you.
Now we have verbal fire department update by Cal Fire Battalion Chief Ayuso.
Sorry, I'll try to keep my eyes on you. I know, sitting at an angle. Good evening, Chair and Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight. Bobby Ayuso, your Operations Battalion Chief for the Atwater Fire Department. I do want to start off with saying I appreciate the concerns and the questions. If those didn't arise, I would have concerns that you didn't care or didn't want to understand. So I appreciate it because a lot of people do come to their own conclusions with how things work, and I will, as Mr. Santos said, clarify a little bit, and hopefully you do have a better understanding. But thank you to the Finance Director and Mr. Thompson for clarification on some of that. I'll start off with the call volume. I'll make this as brief as I can and leave it up to you for Q&A. I did print out call volume packets. Those are year-to-date documents that you can look at as I do in each meeting. You can look at the call volume breakdown, percentage and numbers broken down by station. Currently, Station 41 is at 1,184 calls. Station 42 is at 770. That's a total of about 1,954 calls, averaging just over 12 calls per day. That is a little low for the overall average response at the end of the year. However, coming into the busier season, as the weather gets hotter and drier, we will start to tier back up. We'll probably end in that same range, 13 and a half-ish average per day. So the next topic is the purchases. Again, thank you for the concerns. I will do my best, Mr. Perez, with trying to update you all as far as what we are looking to purchase in the future. Although interim city manager Thompson made a good point. I think at the beginning of the fiscal year, if we can review that with you, that would probably be a good idea. So I did have quite a few purchases over the last 3 months. The reason for that was we had the upfitting of the new command vehicles, which we're still kind of fine tuning. Majority of those purchases have been done though. Some of them include purchases through Amazon and Cook's Communications for different miscellaneous accessories, for command boards, lighting, flashlights, different hand tools, that sort of thing. We did purchase miscellaneous hand tools, fire hoses, and nozzles for equipment, trying to prepare for upfitting of other equipment that's coming, as well as some replacement of existing equipment. We did order additional rope rescue equipment. We had our CAL FIRE agreement, which we expended the rest of what was out of Measure B, which was just over $1.6 million worth of the agreement. We did have the new SCBA's went in service on the AFG grant that we did with Merced City. That was very exciting. We had a few miscellaneous items that weren't covered where, we initially planned, so we had some purchases that came up there. We did have some training costs, replacement of, believe it or not, the Milwaukee batteries that we have on our extrication equipment are pretty pricey, but replacement of those, and those are miscellaneous use for different tools, including our extrication equipment, ventilation fans, different lights, sawzalls, that sort of thing. Real big, exciting purchase that was made in the last 3 months was the Type 6 engine. That is on order. The chassis is sitting at High Tech in Oakdale. They're waiting on the poly build to come in, the build up, and then they can start moving forward. We'll hope to have that in service, I'd like to say in the next year. So very exciting. Now the one that came up with several questions, the paint project. I appreciate again the questions and concerns that have arose. So where this all started in the discussions that we had when the budget was identified and there was expenditures identified, and one of them being, I believe, was $30,000 worth of exterior paint, which was itemized on that expenditure plan for the 23-24 budget. Part of that was the replacement of the bay doors. We budgeted, I believe it was about $145,000 for that, as well as additional costs for painting due to some different construction issues that we would have with replacement of the bay doors. Through some assessment and looking at different evaluation of what we could do to try to save some money for the city, we did some maintenance. We replaced some different motors on the doors. We did some routine maintenance, had them maintain the front bay doors that are all on automatic garage doors. And I will remind you that that is a part of emergency response when we talk about a bay door not opening. It has happened. And the engine cannot respond to a call. So it did have an impact on emergency response for public, and that was where that kind of arose. So leading to the paint project specifically, we did some maintenance. We were able to catch up on that. Mr. Price, I think you probably know very well. You drive by there a lot. Those bay doors, as well as the station, were in dire need of some care, some TLC. So we did spend about $2,000, just shy of that as of right now, and we're done with the project. It is done. Had we had paid prevailing wage, and just my estimate, if we were to look at a 3-person crew at say $75 an hour on prevailing wage, 8 to 10 days on 8-hour days, we're probably looking at $15,000 to $18,000 in prevailing wage that we're paying somebody to come out to conduct that work. We do have a captain that has a vast painting background, offered to take on the project. So our engine companies were out there doing it as a team. Did take a little bit longer than I would have liked because they were responding to calls. But in the end, that's where the whole background came from. I did explain it, as you said, at the Planning Commission meeting, but I do want to build some clarity and just remind you that I know myself and Chief Salvador both take a lot of pride in purchasing. I spend the money for our fire department budget like it's my own money, and whether that's general fund or Measure B, it doesn't matter. I take great pride in that. So I can assure you that every single thing itemized, if you had a question, I could show you the receipt and identify exactly why it was spent there and what it was for. So moving on, some upcoming purchases that, again, I'm going to try to do my best. Things do come up before 3 months is up. There's just no way that I'll always be able to tell you everything that will be spent in the next 3 months. But another thing that's very prideful to me is health and wellness of my employees. I've been very vocal about that. We are going to be moving forward with the purchase of some additional weight equipment for Station 41. We are required to work out an hour a day. Health and wellness of those employees and having additional equipment for the additional staffing to be able to stay in quarters and work out is very important to me. I know currently I have to drive across town to the gym. There's just not enough space, room, equipment to work out with the rest of the crew. So that is an exciting purchase that I'm looking at. And then next fiscal year, moving forward with another Type 1 engine. That'll be a down payment. We're looking at probably a 3-year, they call it a lease, but it's essentially a loan, $400,000 down payment that we are going to put towards that. So that will just build up on our replacement program for our equipment. And a Type 1 is like the new engine at Station 41. That is already a 4-year-old piece of equipment. So by the time we see the new one, we're probably looking at a 7-year-old piece of equipment at best. So it's just trying to stay on top of that. Moving forward, we did fund a little bit more money for Type 6 upfitting. I'm hoping that we can do that, as well as start upfitting for the new Type 1 coming in, and then utilize old equipment off of the old engines to finish the upfitting of that. ADA facility improvements, bathrooms, that was another big one that we did allocate some funding for out of state Measure B for Station 41. And with the increase in staffing levels, there's only 2 bathrooms there. We've got to expand a little bit. There was some infrastructure issues with water leaks causing mold, some different issues that we had. So that is allocated as a line item. I'm working closely with Public Works Director Vincent on completing that project, but those were the main big ones. As Chief Salvador mentioned, we did have the master plan purchases as well this current fiscal year, but we anticipate having a few more upon the completion of that. So moving on, public education, we did have pancake breakfast. It turned out great. We had Captain Anderson, Engineer Maldonado, Engineer Long, and they all spent a lot of time trying to prepare for that. We brought something back to the community that I think everybody was looking for. It was successful, and we brought quite a few people in. I think we sold almost 200 tickets, had about 150, 160 tickets come through. So it was very successful. I think everybody had a great time with that. And then we've been involved with several other miscellaneous public education events. And then moving into my last update is the fire marshal side of things. Weed abatement is almost complete. There was initially, I talked to Chief Lopes today, there was about 160 initial citations written. He did re-inspects last week. There was 33 of those 160 left that got written up. And as of today, he was anticipating that 10 of them were already completed. So we're probably only looking at about 23 left, which is really good, actually. With that weed abatement component comes the 4th of July. There is a Nail 'em app. I know that I've tried to get the word out, and Chief Lopes does, and Chief Salvador. If you don't have the application, get it. It's called Nailem, Nailem. You have the ability to get in there as a citizen and report fireworks, okay? Chief Lopes monitors this. He sends an update, he runs a report, and he sends it to Chief Salvador with the police department, and he's able to have officers go out, and it actually shows different heat maps and that sort of thing. So it's a really good program. It's free for the city. We don't pay anything for it, so it's great to get use out of that. Fireworks booth inspections started last week. That's for safe and sane throughout the city. And then lastly, school inspections are done as part of SB 1205, and apartments will be done. Last 20 are due to be done in July. So with that, that's all I have. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions from the committee?
I do have more of a statement, and Chief Ayuso, thank you for taking my calls regarding some of the questions that did come up, and just confirming. So what was proposed for the paint project and the bay doors was initially $30,000, and you were able to get it done with internal staff for $1,828.65.
Yes, and there may be $100 and something invoice still outstanding with Vista Paint. Again, that was $145,000 allocated for replacement of bay doors. I think the cheapest estimate we got out of the 3, which is when we move forward with assessing, doing some different maintenance and that sort of thing, was just shy of $100,000. So we wrote that off, and then there was a separate line item, I believe, don't quote me, it was around $30,000 that was allocated for just the exterior paint.
And I appreciate the update regarding some of the items for future purchases potentially coming out of the Measure B funding, because that is, the physical fitness equipment, those kinds of things all fall within that parameter. And with additional staffing, I would think that those are all positive things for the staff. And just knowing previously how individuals appreciate that at their own station, being able to work out as it is a requirement for CAL FIRE's agreement and OSHA requirements for physical fitness for emergency responders. So appreciate you forward thinking that particular project, and thanks for the update on the 4th of July items, because last year was pretty pretty 4th of July savvy within the city of Atwater.
As Gabe said, I want to echo the same thing. I'm appreciative of your whole department. I'm appreciative of all this public safety, department guys, police and fire. There's nothing more important. My only concern, and will always be the concern, is the allocation of the funds, out of which pocket are we going to pull it from? I just am one of those that I think that, the money that's budgeted in the general fund should play a part in that, and not to be totally reliant on the Measure B funding. Maintenance to the station is absolutely important. I don't disagree with you on anything that you were saying there about, if a roll-up door doesn't work and you're trying to get, down the street to, a baby that's choking or something along those lines, I don't want to hear that, the door didn't work. It's a sole source provider type of thing. Again, whether it's a Measure B expenditure, I guess we'll agree to disagree on some of those items, but in any case, getting it done is the bottom line, and that's the important thing. The only other thing I would ask is, how are you set up, or what would be the process for strike teams, for the fire season that we are in, and how would that work?
Good question. So first off, the first part of the comments I do want to add as well. There are still some anticipated costs associated with repairs on those doors. They are very old. We did allocate $45,000 towards additional repairs, but we're trying to be as fiscally responsible as we can with spending that money. So just so you don't see it, it is an itemized item in the expenditure plan. As far as the out-of-county response, I'm very excited. This is something we haven't been able to do in several years because of limited staffing and only having 2 personnel on a fire engine. Right now, with the way we're staffed, we have minimum of 3-person staffing. If there's nobody on vacation, a lot of times we'll have 4 at one station, possibly both. There's, say about half the week we see that happen just because there isn't vacation time. What that'll do and allow us to do now that we have a little bit of depth, or we're building the depth, especially when the Type 6 gets put in service, we'll start sending equipment out of county. That's part of our ABH agreement, CFMA, with local government assisting state agencies with different incidents, state mission-wise, and earning money and funding back for the city. Those Type 6 engines, when that one does get in service, that one accrues about $2,000 a day revenue for the city. So it's a big money maker. The other big thing with the Type 6 is it only needs to go out with 2 personnel. So I can send that piece of equipment out with 2. Reality is I do not see it in service this summer. However, if we can keep our reserve equipment in service, I can send an engine out and still, possibly reduce from doing cross staffing of the truck and engine at 42 and still have a reserve, something like that, where I'd still be able to send an engine out. And those are the upwards, don't quote me, but I want to say those are closer to $3,500, $4,000 a day. So it is beneficial if our equipment stays in service, which, we've been a lot better over the last few years with doing that, working with our public works and our shop department to maintain those, do the preventative maintenance and that sort of thing. But it just reverts back to my comment earlier about equipment and trying to get that depth, right? We still have a 1999 fire engine that's a reserve engine. It should be retired, and you know that very well. So we are catching up, and it is through support from all of you on the committee, as well as the community and staff and everyone. So looking forward to that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We have a verbal update by Interim City Manager Thompson.
Thank you, committee, for an opportunity to kind of come before you tonight. I don't really have any comments based on what our public safety professionals have added. I'm a little new to this process and to this committee, so I might be a little different flavor than what you're used to seeing. So I just want to give you a heads up on that. So basically, there's three or four things I just want to state, and I'll be very brief. One thing relative to the comments that are made about improvements either to the police department or the fire division, if you see mingled into their reports provisions for ADA, it is not necessarily a telltale sign that our ADA is all out of whack. What it means is that on public improvement projects like this, we hit
Mr. Thompson,
threshold.
your mic isn't working?
Is it still not working?
No, it's still not working. It's working here, but it's not working over the stream.
Oh, okay.
Use a different mic or.
Yeah. Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Okay, just a note real quick on ADA. When we hit a certain threshold of monies, when it comes to public improvements to buildings, structures, fire stations, police stations, things like that, it triggers the necessity to spend at least 20% of the project on ADA improvements. So when you see ADA mixed or weaved into there, that's why that's there. It's not necessarily that the city is delinquent in some of its ADA requirements. It's just the threshold we hit, it triggers the necessity for that. I do want to talk a little bit about moving forward with the committee. You may see a little different format, and this is something else that the finance director, Anna and I have spoke about, is the type of reporting and the information that you get. You may see it put or constructed in a little bit different detail so that it does provide adequate detail for the committee to deliberate on. Also want to make sure, as I will probably chime in on occasion, I want to encourage free dialogue with the committee. I think it's a really great importance. I like the transparency and the questions. We just have to make sure that we don't get off track and talk about things other than what the purpose and the role of the committee is. I do want to talk about the education of the committee and maybe giving a little bit better in-depth reporting on the purpose, the intent, the ordinance, some of the language things that I don't think have been discussed in detail before, which is what we've had to discuss. And what we discussed, that's what Chief Ayuso and our finance director was referring to, that deep dive we did before we set that expenditure report. Education reporting, staying on topic, that 20%. That's all I got for tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Thank you. So I do want to make sure that I understand something that was stated earlier today with regards to the committee in the way of education and also an opportunity to help better facilitate dialogue when we do have information brought to our attention by public safety. And that was the opportunity to perhaps attend a workshop or something prior to budget approval, so this way as a committee we can have a sense of understanding of what expenditures are coming forward ahead of time for approval for the budget. Or did I know that
You didn't
come out.
misunderstand. I think an opportunity to discuss what a draft expenditure plan
Yes.
may look like, I think is a good idea. I don't think a line-by-line accounting of it would
Yes.
probably be appropriate, but we can have a discussion about what a draft expenditure plan may look like in an upcoming budget cycle.
So then would it be too late for this upcoming budget? Your fiscal year is at July 1?
The budget for the city of Atwater was adopted last night.
Last night, okay, so it would be too late, okay, thank you.
Can I make a quick note on that, just to confirm, Mr. Thompson? If there was something, just to reiterate for the public, if there was something that was identified after the fact, it would still get reverted back. If it was misuse of any Measure B funds, it would still get reverted back from the general fund to the Oversight Committee. That's one of the big things that I always remind the general public.
I think I understand what you're saying. And the role and the function of the committee is in fact audit. But let's say something was identified, that a question was raised. Yeah, that is something that most likely would have to go back to council. for budget amendment or potential action.
Thank you.
If I might, what Gabe says is pretty germane to, the overall ordinance, I guess, of the Measure B. You've heard me beat the drum enough, I think, on this, but I think that's an important component of here is if we do find, or if we believe we found an item within the expenditures that is not appropriate or in line with the Measure B, we need to have an outlet. We need to have some way of going through a process of some sort to make sure that expenditure either returns the money, find a different source, or something. But I think that's a real valid point. Maybe I just off the top of my head, I'm just thinking, the function of oversight, I've made a lot of noise about it, but I think, if it's going to be true oversight, that's got to be a component of it, rather than just report it to you, Greg, which is, I guess, the proper procedure now is to report it to you. But to add to that, report it to you, and with a recommendation or a suggestion, however you want to word it, that this needs to be looked at, or here's a better way to do it, or something. But I think everybody up here is intelligent enough to come up with an alternative way to do something, and I can't off the top of my head give you an example, but those types of things I think are important to proper oversight. And I go back to the Measure V, when I was sitting up here, and I was part of that whole process and one of the authors of Measure V, and the oversight that we put in place there allowed for some things that are not done here. And they made reports regularly to the council, or to the MCAG board, and it was a little more involved, and I'd like to see that within this committee. I think everybody would like to as well.
And I'm assuming that in the guidance for the committee, there is a framework that establishes how that reporting would occur.
Certainly.
We'd have to look at the bylaws, but say, here's an example. If you're looking at we're now including the accounts payable transaction report. If you see a piece of playground equipment, is in there, question it. We would first look and see if perhaps something got coded incorrectly. We can resolve that, report back at a future committee meeting. Okay, we coded something wrong. For the most part, things go through their checks and balances. Right now, you have two excellent chiefs who, to echo Bobby Ayuso, they take a lot of pride. But laying that framework in the future, if you have different chiefs in place, we want that. And that's why we went back to the drawing board. Correct. We went back to the drawing board and started looking at the legislation because we want to know exactly what the guardrails are. So for now, if you were to see something that doesn't it doesn't match your expenditure plan, the expenditure plan is that budget. So it's been approved, it's there, it's available for you. Something that, is glaringly obvious, like I was the example of playground equipment or something. We research it, report back. I would advise, and Greg, please, you kick me now under the table, but if the committee is not satisfied, then you have every right to report to council what the outcome and direction is from our following up with you on that.
But the first order of business, obviously, is I apologize for putting this in layman's terms, but you see something on these reports that doesn't smell right, you're going to bring it to the attention of the city manager, whoever that may be at the time, and the finance director.
We can research.
And give us the opportunity to research how it got there in the first place. And then we can create a guidance for what is to be done after that. But the first order of business of the committee is to daylight it.
Thank you.
Comments from the public. At this time, any person may comment on any item which is not on the agenda. You may state your name and address for the record, however, it is not required. Action will not be taken on an item that is not in the agenda. If it requires action, it will be referred to staff and or placed on a future agenda. Please limit comments to a maximum of 3 minutes.
What a breath of fresh air, this wonderful committee. My name is Linda Dash. I'm pretty impressed that you really care about looking out for the money that we worked our honeys off to raise in this city. But I do have a couple of questions, as I normally do. And welcome, Anna. I don't think I've ever seen you being so, I mean, you're great explaining this. And I think with this new, how do I want to say, new administration that we have right now, people are not afraid to speak out, and they were telling us what we want to hear. And you're very transparent. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Anna. But I do have a question to the police chief, because I did look at, this is the personnel, this is everybody's budget. We have in here, I believe, you have 19 officers budgeted for the 23-24 year. That's what it says here.
Oh, no, it's not 19. So if you look at the total sworn roster of the police department, there's a police chief, a lieutenant.
No, excuse me. Police officers, not corporals, sergeants, chiefs, lieutenants, but police officers. 19, it says here.
So,
Got it?
so this is the public
Well,
comment.
excuse
No,
me,
no, it's
that's what I
okay. No,
can't
this
ask
is
you.
public comment, so we are not able to
what-
speak to anything that's not
Right.
agendized.
So, okay. So what I'm looking at that was published by the city of Atwater last year in your budget, police officer, recruit/police officer, 19. Now, the year before that, it was 21. But you did push up to police corporals, 2. So I guess that's the difference between the 19 and the 21. I don't know, I'm kind of stupid, so maybe you might have to explain it to me. You added a code enforcement officer and 1 dispatcher. But what I'm concerned about is we definitely didn't work our heinies off to raise money in Measure B to only have 19 police officers in this community of 33,000. So that makes me very unhappy. So I'm going to have to squawk about that in the next council meeting or to some of my friends that sit on the council. And I also have a question too, and I'm going to send a FOIA request, so I'll let you know. I want to know how much did this city spend on remodeling the police department? I want to know exactly how much and what it was, what all the money was spent for, and was it in the budget and was it approved? And I noticed your police chief has a conference room when by maybe 15 feet down is a perfectly good conference room in the trailer. I mean, there's money that I think could be spent somewhere else. And 3 minutes is up, so I'll take the rest up to the council. Thanks.
Thank you.
One else coming forward, so closing the public comment. Committee matters.
So this is the opportunity for the committee members to just briefly make any comments about materials that we have not discussed or is not on the agenda at this time. But I'd like to again extend a welcome to Mr. Price for coming out on the committee. Thank you very much for your participation. And thank you to staff for the clarification and education that we have received tonight. I think that this information is really good in allowing us to continue to move forward with confidence as we continue to audit any information that has, that comes before us. And again, having staff inform us of what is coming up ahead will certainly allow us to pay attention to some of the future reports that will be coming our way to ensure that information is lining up. So thank you very much for that. I'll turn this over to Eduardo. Is there any comments you'd like to make at this time?
Yeah, I just wanted to also welcome Mr. Price and thank both of the chiefs, and just understand that I think we're all on the same page, and just I appreciate the fact that we can have an open dialogue and just keep it civil, and we all want the same. So thank you, gentlemen, and welcome, Mr. Price.
Gabe?
Yes, I also want to welcome Mr. Price to the committee. I do have a couple things that were brought up from citizens that the only way that we can relay back now that we are streaming for the public is that they know that those concerns regarding any oversight concerns were brought up. For Police Chief Salvador, there was a couple things that were brought up. Again, it's just comments that come from the public, but they were brought up regarding just speeding and is Measure B helping with speeding on Schaefer, things like that. So I try to reiterate that the Measure B funds are utilized for those staffing positions, and they're utilized throughout the city. And then the graffiti and then some of the gang task force items did come up again. Appreciate all your updates. I want to wish everybody a happy Father's Day for the fathers out there, and hopefully a safe 4th of July. Chief Ayuso, thank you for taking my call. We thought it was going to be a quick phone call, and appreciate you taking the time to explain all those things. And I always encourage the public to reach out to any one of us if they have any concerns regarding the Measure B expenditures, as we did work hard, as was mentioned during public comment, to ensure those. And I also want to echo that we do have the utmost faith in the expenditures, but we do appreciate the open dialogue to be able to ask those questions. And if we reiterate during these meetings, it's only to ensure the public that those were brought up and not just to maintain transparency. So thank you.
Mr. Price?
I think everybody's probably thinking, I've heard enough from this guy tonight, but I too want to commend staff for, their excellent presentations and their diligence within the community. It doesn't go unnoticed. I just would like to finish up by saying that, a lot of the things that I was bringing up, and some things that I didn't bring up, but fact is that I get a lot of that information from looking at the warrants list for each month, and you will see a check that's written and what fund it comes out of and who it goes to and the amount. And those are the kind of things that, I look at that and I say, geez, why didn't that go through the committee? I've been coming here steadily now since December, and I didn't hear those things. I'm confident, and I think after the discussion tonight, I think there's a change in attitude towards that. I don't want to find out about it after the fact, in a warrants list, that a certain particular check has been written for a dollar amount into a company that have no idea who they are, and categorized in a way that doesn't make sense to the layman. So anyway, with that, I am very pleased to be on this committee. I thank you, Greg, for allowing me that opportunity. I think we have a great community here, and the only way it stays great is by participation from the public and by the dedication of those that are here to serve us. And I think my faith is restored this evening as to, the dedication and that, that comes from staff. Thank you very much, and I appreciate being here.
Thank you. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.